Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was near. Therefore Jesus, lifting up his eyes and seeing that a large crowd was coming to him, said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so that these may eat?" This he was saying to test him, for he himself knew what he was intending to do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them, for everyone to receive a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are these for so many people?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, in number about 5,000. Jesus then took the loaves, and having given thanks, he distributed to those who were seated, likewise also of the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were filled, he said to his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments, that nothing will be lost." So he gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves which were left over by those who had eaten. Therefore, when the people saw the sign which he had performed, they said, "This is truly the prophet who is come into the world." The word of the Lord.
Well, good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I am Mark McGrath. I'm part of the teaching team here at the church. As you can see from the bulletin, my task this morning is to talk to you about the feeding of the 5,000. We've just read that story. Thank you, Joy. We're in the middle of a series based on the Gospel of John. And John's Gospel was written a little differently than the other Gospels, right? The other Gospels were written earlier, and they were primarily designed to be a chronologic flow of things Jesus did, right? It starts at Monday and it moves to Tuesday and then it goes to Wednesday. It's chronology. And John, years after the other 3 Gospels have been written, John is towards the end of his life, towards the end of the ministry, he's watching Christianity spread throughout the known world and realizes that there were some pieces of the story where we've missed the significance, that the story's not just about the facts. It's about the meaning of those facts. And sometimes it's very possible to, as we go through the history, like we did that when I was in school. I just learned history as a series of facts. This happened on this date, this happened on this date, this happened on this date. I had no idea, till I was a grown-up, that all of those dates had people in them. Right? I didn't know. It was like, you signed the Declaration of Independence, just poof, it shows up. The idea that there was an emotional and a relational and a political and an economic struggle where different opinions were fighting for what was the right thing to do, nobody told me that. It was just fact. And that's the way the first Gospels were written, as fact. And John writes this at the end. He's not moving primarily in a chronologic fashion. He's not moving from week 1 to week 2. He's actually trying to look at 7 specific instances in the life of Jesus that are saying something about God and about his Son, that are saying something that he's afraid that the facts without the focus will be missed, or the focus without just the facts would be missed. So he's trying to tell us these 7 signs, these 7 advertisements, these 7 messages that he's afraid that in just the accumulating of the stories of Jesus, we're going to miss the point. And so that's what these signs are all about. It's about the oldest, we don't know whether when he wrote this, if he was still at that point the only one left, but it's towards the end. And he's trying to say, look, guys, let's not forget this. Certain things happen, but they have certain meanings that we have to get hold of. And this is one of those 7 stories, 7 advertisements, so to speak, 7 messages, is the feeding of the 5,000. And I'm going to warn you now, by the time we're done, I'm going to ask you to do something we don't do on Sunday mornings. Okay? So I'm just warning you now. Don't be terribly afraid, just a little. All right? So we're going to walk our way through those things. But so I'm just going to quickly, if you will permit me, I'm just going to tell you the story to get to the parts I want to focus on. All right? There are important pieces here. And again, remember that John writes this so that we would get the meaning, not just know the fact. He wants us to get the meaning of this. Why is this important to us? And so here's the story. Jesus, most of us, we may or may not realize that Jesus conducted his ministry like in chunks. It's not just like one big frenetic race through 3.5 years to get all the miracles in, right? There were seasons. And so this is a time coming to a close in this section chronologically where Jesus has been wrapping up his ministry in the region of Galilee. Now, Galilee was the rural area, right? It was not the inner city, was not the big city. It was more rural. It was plain folk. It was fishermen, farmers, shepherds, not the most educated in the culture, not the most affluent in the culture. This is, for us here in New Jersey, this is a ministry in the Midwest. Hardworking people, people of the land, people who are into hypotheticals, they're into surviving, right? They're not into, hey, let's create an intellectual exercise about the meaning of life. They were like, we got to eat next week. That means if it's cold out, I got to go fishing anyway. If it's not a good day, I still got to take care of my crops. If the sheep are out in the field and it's thundering and lightning and it's cold and I'm wet, too bad, right? It's this kind of people. And so he's just wrapping up that. And just before this, there's several things that happened before this that influence the story, but the one that is interesting to me mostly is that he just finished sending out his disciples to conduct the continuation of his ministry. It wasn't just that Jesus was healing the sick and setting people free from oppression. He had just commissioned his followers to do the same thing. Right? He had empowered them. He'd sent them out. There was some 70 of them that had gone out, and they were preaching, and they were praying and healing people. They were setting people free from oppression. This was a really, really cool time in the growth of these disciples. Right? They were now going from just being listeners to being doers. Right? They were not just receiving the teaching of Jesus. They now had been called to go ahead and do it yourself. You can imagine, they came back, if you remember the story, they were pretty excited. Right? It was like, wow, we preached and we prayed for people and sick people got well and people who had been oppressed for years and they got set free and whoa, that was awesome. Right? And if you've ever been on a mission project and you get to be part of a meeting and it goes really, really well, you come home thinking, yeah, I love this, right? You can imagine that was what was going on in the minds of these disciples. This was really cool. And Jesus said, so cool. He keeps them connected to what's really important, but he said, it was really cool. I watched it, boys. It was awesome. Now let's go out into the woods. Let's go up to the mountain, hang out for a couple days. I want to debrief you. I want to talk about what was going on. I want to take it to the next place. So they go away to retreat, really, essentially, to get some time together, to get some refreshing time. So, it's really exciting. So they go out to the mountains. They're up there. They're walking. And the problem is Jesus just can't hide. He didn't even have a Facebook page, and he still couldn't hide. right? He wasn't like, selfie, me and John. It's just like, let's go somewhere, guys. Let's just get away. Maybe even he's tired. So they go away, and they just can't get away. You can't. They just, and people are walking in large quantities just to get wherever it is he wants to be. Right now, we don't always get this in our culture. I did years and years ago. I did some meetings in South America, and people traveled 3 days by foot and canoe to come to a meeting. I'm like, hey, if it's more than a half an hour, I'll get the tape, right? But we were there, and literally, the meeting was Wednesday. They set out on Sunday. And that means, it means you got to stop, you got to set up camp, you got to eat, you got to sleep, you got to take care of yourself, you got to pack everything up, you got to go again. And some of it was on foot, and some of it was in canoe down rivers, and they're doing all of that for 3 days to come to a meeting. It's kind of like that here, right? People are spending days walking. Days. This is not the hottest time of the year, probably because the grass is green. John tells us, interesting, right? The grass is green, so it's not the scorching heat, but let's face it, it's not like today, where we're happy for 40. It was still pretty hot, and you're doing this for days. So you probably set out. Some of these were merchants. They had baskets. Fishermen carried their fish in baskets. Farmers carried their crops in baskets. They had baskets that they probably started out with food in it, right? And then you go day one, and you eat a little bit. You go to day two, you eat a little bit more. You go to day three, you eat a little more, and now your basket's empty, and he's still going. So you go, no food. It's not like New Jersey, where if we go for 4 hours without eating, we think we're going to die. I mean, these people are used to, maybe 2-3 days you go, you don't eat because we didn't get a chance. And Jesus and his disciples are standing there kind of up at the top of a peak, and you could just look out and notice thousands and thousands of people walking. Groups of 20, groups of 50, groups of 5. Just the landscape is covered with this moving crowd of people. Think about it. If there was 5,000 males, each male probably brought a female and a kid or 3. So you're looking at somewhere between 15 and 20,000 people coming for days, just coming, as far as you could see. It's just pockets of people coming. And Jesus, who is amazingly adept at teaching his followers what they most need to succeed, sets them up. He sets them up. I love it. So he turns to Andrew, and this is kind of Andrew's home turf, right? This would be like going to school in California and with a whole bunch of your friends from New Jersey, and there's one guy from California in the group, right? It's like picking the guy from the hometown. That's what this is here. Jesus picks the guy who lives here. And he says, hey, look at that crowd. Wow. Oh. Let's feed them. Feed them. And you can just see the calculations going. Oh, it looks like, whoa, it looks like thousands. Maybe it's 1 million people. I don't know. And he says, well, I know a couple of villages. You can get about 5 or 10 loaves from the local baker here and 5 or 10 from here. And he said, Jesus. Whoa. If we had all the time in the world, it would still cost us $30,000 to $40,000 to give everybody a little piece of bread. I got a better plan. Tell them to go home. Just send them home. Never mind that they walked 3 days and ate whatever they had. Now just send them home for another 3 days. Quick, before they die en route. If you wait another 4 days, they're not going to make it home. So tell them to go home now. And then Andrew says, well, I found this kid, and he's got like a brown bag. Lunch. It's 5 loaves. Barley loaves. They're not even the size of a hard roll. All right? We're New Jerseyans. We get hard rolls. Right? You go to some places, it's a Kaiser roll. There's no Germans here. It's a hard roll. Right? This barley loaf's not even as big as a hard roll. They got 5 of them. Well, there you go. And a couple of pieces of fish. Now, this is not, Arthur Treacher's. This is just like, fish that we smoked. And Mama put it in the bag for my journey. And I got it left. And he brings it to, he's looking out, he hears the conversation. He says, they're talking about feeding people. Well, I got a bag. And he brings it to one of the disciples. Says, well, look, if we're trying to think about food, I got some. And what an awesome gesture. Because if you give your lunch where there's 20,000 people who need to eat, you ain't likely getting your lunch. Right? It's not like it's not like a covered dish dinner. I'll eat my hard roll, you can eat some of my hard roll, and then I'll have some of your lasagna. It's like I'm bringing my hard roll, and I'm giving it away. I could go hungry. But look, we're all here. We got to do this. I mean, that kid is, in my book, the hero of the story. The disciples are all confused. This kid's got it. And he says, you could bring this to Jesus. And so Jesus already knew. Here are these guys just come off of the greatest ministry trip of their career. Right? These guys are flying high, heady with success. And Jesus sets them up with something they can't deal with. He sets them up to be in over their head. It's not like, I want to teach you a lesson. It's like, no, boys. You think you were just moving in all the great gifts of God? It's not a rebuke. He's like, here's your next assignment. Feed 20,000 people with a couple of hard rolls. He sets them up to be in over their head. Because what they have isn't enough. It isn't enough to meet the real need that they are facing. It's just not enough. It's real. It's theirs. But it's not big enough to take care of the issues we are facing. They are in over their heads. That's the setup. That boy brings his lunch and he submits it. He says, here, give this to Jesus. It's, at least he'll eat. So here's what Jesus says to the guys. Have them all sit down. We're going to feed them. Have them all sit down. So you're one of the 12. So Jesus gives you probably 3/4 of a hard roll. Right? There's 12 of them. There's 5 loaves. You get about a little more than a half. Right? Maybe less than a half. And he says, here, there's a group of 50 or 100 men right here. Gives you half a hard roll. Says, go ahead, feed them. So here's the question I want to ask you. How much do you give to the first guy? You got a half a hard roll. How much do you give to the first guy? If it's me, I'm like, a little piece. Right? It's like a crumb. I got one group of 50 and another 99 groups of 50 ahead of me, and I haven't even got to the women yet. Right? And this is Eastern culture. The men eat first. Women eat if. That's the rule, sorry. It's like that still in some cultures. Maybe your house shouldn't be. Not for nothing, just saying that. So how much do you give to the first guy? Here, hold out your hand. Crumbs. Looks down at his bread, and it looks about the same. So he takes another little crumb and gives it to the second guy. Looks down at his hard roll, and it's about the same. He looks to the third guy. Looks down at his hard roll, and it's about the same. He goes to the fourth guy. Maybe gives a little bigger piece, because it doesn't look like it's making sense here. So maybe he chunks off like a piece. Looks down at his hard roll, and it's about the same. About 4 or 5 people down the list, and the hard roll's exactly the same. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back to the first guy. Wait a minute, I only gave you a crumb. Here, take a piece. Here, take a piece. Here, and back to that number 6, number 7, I'm looking down, and the hard roll's the same. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to the first guy again. I say, wait a minute. I gave you a crumb and then a little piece here. Have half a hard roll. 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 6 feet later, I got a whole hard roll here. Holy shoot. Now, I'm ripping this baby off in chunks. Here, look at that. Here. Whoa. Wait a minute, let me go back to the first guy. Wait a minute. Here's 3 quarters of a hard roll. 3 quarters of a hard roll. 3 quarters. Look, I still got wait a minute. And then the guy gets up front and he realizes, I watched that. I saw it. He ripped that hard roll in half. And it didn't change. He turns around to his cousin Andrew. Andrew, here, hold out your hand. Look! You got half, I got half. Wow! Andrew says, hey, wait, Thomas, over here. And soon everybody's giving everybody half a hard roll. It's the only way you can come up with 12 baskets of leftovers. Because if the stinking 12 disciples were given it, not only would it have taken 3 days to feed 20,000 people, half a hard roll at a time, but you'd only give out enough to get done. What happens is the whole thing starts spreading. Everybody starts ripping off hard rolls. Here, have some, you have some, you have some, you have some. And this, you can almost feel the crowd getting electric. I saw the hard roll. I watched. It didn't get smaller until I ate it. How flipping awesome is that? And at that point, the crowd begins to buzz. Whoa, we're into something special here. This is not your hard roll as usual. This is not enough becoming too much to use. It's a completely different ballgame. It's a completely different ballgame. Jesus is saying, I am the God who takes not enough and turns it into more than you can ever use. I am the God who takes your little bag lunch and feeds 20,000 people with enough left over for you to fill your baskets for the way home. This is the God we follow. This is the one who takes not enough. I want you to be honest. If you had a mirror here, you could see yourself in the mirror. I'm promising you, you're not enough. You're not enough. When you think of the chaos of the hungry and the abused and the hurting and the need, and you look at your own time and your own wallet and your own emotional extra, you're not enough. MCC is not enough. If we could get every single church in Essex County together, it's not enough. We live in a world where what we have is not enough. But what we do in that reality is we put our lunch away, or we sneak it at our own little corner. We start eating our own hard rolls. We put our arms out because I don't want Bob to notice I got lunch. How many of you ever reached into your wallet in a meeting and took out the last piece of gum and tried to quietly unwrap it? Come on, come on. And because you didn't want your husband or your wife to know you had a piece. It's not enough. Look, if you don't have enough to give everybody, don't use it. Don't bring it out. Have we told our kids that? Right? You don't have enough candy to give when everybody, you don't have candy. Smart move on one level. What are we teaching? This boy had it right. He gave what he had, knowing it could mean he went without. And it really wasn't going to be enough, but he gave it anyway. And when Jesus took what that boy gave him, he turned it into more than ever dreamed possible. Look, what's in your lunch bag? Come on, look at your life. What's in your lunch bag? I don't mean be hypothetical and theoretical and all spiritual. All of the blessings of God. Yes, of course. But I mean in your bag. When you get out of bed and you look at that mug in the mirror on tomorrow morning, what's really in your bag? I don't know. I'm good at music. I hate singing. I don't know. I got strengths. I've got weaknesses. I've got things I'm afraid of. I got things I dream about. I got things I hope to be happening. I have things I hope never do. In my lunch bag is a mix. But even on my best day, it's not enough to even be me. I can't even be me with my lunch bag. Do you know it's possible? Come on. It's possible to be all kinds of blessed and anointed and still feel frustrated and lonely and empty. Come on. Let's not pretend. I look in that bag and I think, this is all I got? And then some jerk says, well, there's people worse off than you. Maybe. But what's in your bag? I love kids. Can't teach, but I love kids. I got an hour for lunch that I never seem to use. I hate the spotlight, but I love to organize. I don't know what's in your bag. I'm telling you this, as long as it's in your bag, rolled up and put in your case, it's all you have. It never becomes anything else. We want to wait till we have the 12 baskets full of leftovers before we give the first piece out. We want to have a truckload of excess before we give away a little bit. What I'm telling you, if you don't take what's in your bag and give it to Jesus and let him take it and use it, all you got is a bag lunch. Welcome to New Jersey. How's that working for you? But if you take that, you give it to him, and he says, just break off. You don't have to give the whole thing, because you probably, if you're anything like me, you're just going to give a little crumb, because you don't know. You don't know yet. Well, what if I just talk to that person? What if I ask them out for coffee, and just to let them know I'm thinking about them? A little crumb. You realize, oh, that worked pretty good. You don't know. You don't know. What I'm asking you to do today is take a real, honest look in the mirror and say, who am I? And what do I have in my bag? And am I willing to submit that to the hands that have the holes in them and say, here, this is yours. What shall I do with it? We have talked. We have called you as a church to say we can no longer be satisfied with being a receiver of the wonderful and amazing grace that God has so freely poured on us through Pastor Ed's teaching ministry and through the life here in the church. We have all been amazing beneficiaries of this powerful healing power of grace. But it's time to go from being a restaurant where you sit in the back and let somebody put something on your plate that you pick that up. You say, I'm sorry, we're taking this on the road. I got my bag. I got the stuff I ate from Pastor Ed for the last 20 years. I am bringing it on the road. Here, Jesus. So, well, I don't know the words in Greek. Who gives a flipping rip? Just give it. Give it. It's not enough. It doesn't have to be enough. It has to be given. Jesus' job is to make it enough. And what he does for a living is make it more than enough. But it never is even enough in your bag. It's just a bag lunch. It's just stuff he poured into your life. I lived a hard life. I suffered from rejection and hurt and pain, never thinking anybody loved me until Christ redeemed me and he placed me in community with others. What am I going to bring? Do you know how many people are living that same life today? Who could use just a hand and say, oh, please, I get it. Let me tell you about someone else who can take you somewhere else. Come with me. Some of you have got money and no time. Give it. Some of you have time and no money. Give it. Some of you have got heart but no opportunities. Give it. What do you do with what you got? Give it. It's not enough. Of course not. It's not about your having enough. It's about your giving what you have. So here's what we're going to do quickly. You got to work with me now, all right? Right? Big boys and girls, we're going to go quick, right? All right? Yeah, you don't know yet. You're saying, wait a minute, how do I know? All right? This group right here, you're a group. Get together. You back there, there's at least two groups back here. Make two groups. There's two groups here. Make a group. You're like two groups here. You got one group there. You get my point, right? Split up, and you're going to talk to people. You're a group here. Come back here, sit with them. You're a group here. Split around, turn around, together. Come on, this is church. I know we don't do this in church, but let's pretend it's not. Let's pretend it's not. Come on, get into a group. And here's what I want you to do. Come on. I know this isn't church. We'll go back to being church next week. All right, here's what I want you to do. Small groups, 5, 6, no more, not 20. I want you to take, let me have you. I want you to take about 2 minutes. I'm going to time it, 2 minutes. And I want each of you quietly, no verbs, no nouns, no voices, quietly, in the presence of God. I want you to ask God, what have you given to me? What's in my bag? Personally, not hypothetically, not spiritually. Like, what do you have? Are you good at math? Are you good at science? I don't know. I don't actually even care. It's for you. Now, if you say, I don't know, I look at my life and I don't know if I have anything. Okay. Let's be honest and start there. Right? We're not making up answers. We're not being really hyper-spiritual. Just you and God. You ask God, what have you given to me? What's in my bag, Lord? I want to hear it from you. All right? Take 2 minutes. Let's do that. Heavenly Father, here we are in front of you. Help us. Speak to us. Each of us. Every one of us. Help us see ourselves the way you see us. Give us insight. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. All right? Here's what I want you to do next. In your group, if you are game, this is not school, it's not a test. It's community where we care for and stand with and support each other. If you are willing, I'd like you to take 1 or 2 sentences to share with the people in your group what you think God has placed in your bag. I want you to actually say it, if you can. If you can't, that's okay. It's not school. But if you say, look, I don't know anything, that's okay to say that. All right? Because God meets us where we are, not where we wish we were. Is that fair? We can wish we were somewhere. God's not there. God's where we are. All right? So take 3 minutes or so. So nobody gets to talk for all 3 minutes. It's 1 or 2 sentences. All right? And just share with the rest of your group what you sense is in your bag. Go. I'm giving you 3 minutes. Go. All right, let me have you. Last step. I'd like you in your groups to pray for each other. Now, if praying out loud for you, if praying out loud makes you concentrate more on how you're saying it than what you're saying, don't pray out loud. Right? Because what I want you to do is pray with your heart, not worrying about what people are thinking about how you're saying it. So don't pray out loud if it's a struggle. If you don't feel like praying at all, nobody will know you. Just move your lips. People think you're doing it. But if you want to pray out loud, pray out loud. If people said to the group, I don't know, then pray for them, that God would show them. People have ideas, but they don't know how to start. Well, pray that they'll figure out a next step. Just release what you feel in your heart for those people in your group. And just take a few moments to do it. You can, listen to me, you can release the power of God in that person's heart with your prayer. Just go ahead and do it. I'm going to give you 4 minutes. Go. Heavenly Father, you see us standing here now in front of you. Men and women, wanting nothing more than to take what you have put in our hearts, into our lives, and submit that to you, for you to enable us and empower us to serve those around us. Even as we're doing right now, serving with prayer, serving with love, serving with compassion, standing with one another, listening, not judging, and yielding our hearts in faith to your work in our world. Here we are, Lord. This is us. We want to serve. We want to take what you have given to us so freely, so powerfully, so wonderfully in your Son Jesus and serve those around us. Will you help us? Will you let us see what we don't see now? Hear what we don't hear now? Want what we don't want now? And give what we keep? Will you do that? Thank you, Lord. Amen. Let this be the next step in ending the MCC restaurant and one more step in the MCC Food Truck Inc. God bless you all. Thank you. Worship team.